Hey, good Tuesday morning, everybody, and happy game week. Welcome to the Volquest podcast. I am Eric Kane alongside Austin Price, Brent Hubbs, and Rob Lewis. The long off season, it's over. It is game week. Couple more days until kickoff time in Atlanta, Georgia. Not Tennessee just yet, but Tennessee football will be on the field, so looking forward to that. We got tons and tons of coverage leading up to that noon Eastern time kick between Tennessee and Syracuse at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia, all week long here at VolQuest.com. Guys, Josh Heupel met with the media to kind of kick off game week on Monday afternoon. Didn't really say an awful lot. Did give a Boo Carter update, said that he anticipates him being there and playing. Now, what's that look like, Brent? I mean, is that just special teams? Is he available? We don't know yet, but nothing much from Josh Heupel on Monday. But Tennessee obviously focused on Syracuse and ready to get the season going.
Yeah, not a stunner that Josh Heupel didn't have a bunch of news and notes for us on a Monday press conference, right? And that's the nature and the style. I did find his comments on Boo, I won't say surprising in any way, but he was calculated in that response. I mean, it was not, and I don't think he's ever going to declare like some finality to Boo. I think we're going to stop asking about Boo Carter every week once we see him play in a game. I don't think it's going to be next Monday, what's his status? I don't think you're going to ask that every week unless you know some information. For some reason, there's a reason to ask that question. But I thought Josh Heupel's answer was he needs Boo Carter to finish out preparation the right way, and I think that is the challenge that he has.
Austin, what do you envision for Boo Carter this week? And again, I know it's day by day. I get it. But is it still kind of special teams, we'll see what the game looks like defensively, or do you think that there's no shot of him playing defense? Kind of what's your gauge here early in the week, knowing that obviously could change as the week goes on?
I mean, I have what I think will happen, but as far as what actually will happen, it could be anything from he doesn't start as the punt returner and he's a deep backup on defense and doesn't see the field very much. It could be as much as like I think I can say with straight conviction is he will not start the football game. I would be stunned if he started. But I mean, could he play a lot on defense? Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of that boils down to how he does the rest of this week. And where Tim Banks and Josh Heupel feel like he is. Ultimately, this could be a Tim Banks call. Yeah, Josh Heupel determines if he's on the team or not, if he's dressing or not. But as far as who goes in the game, the defense and the offense, Tim Banks is, as Josh Heupel said, the head coach of the defense. So like he's gonna make that call, and so we'll see where things go. If I had my pick, I would tell you he's a backup on defense who will play, and he will start as a punt returner. But again, none of that stuff's set in stone.
Yeah, certainly not set in stone. And Rob, I mean, we're at the point in the offseason, point in fall camp, really not even fall camp anymore. It's game week to where we've recycled the same talking points. We've hit up and talked about the wide receivers ad nauseum. We've talked about the secondary, talked about the defensive line. It feels like this team is ready to go. It feels like Josh Heupel, based on his comments Monday, likes where this team is, knowing they got to continue to grow still, but it's just ready to go out there and hit somebody that's not your own teammate.
Yeah, I mean, you get to this point every year in fall camp. But I mean, I thought Heupel seemed pretty upbeat and, not rah-rah, we've solved all the problems, but I mean, he seemed pretty confident in his team was my takeaway from Monday. And I mean, I think probably part of that is like his players, he's ready to go play, a game and, coach a game. That's why you do that. But my takeaway was, for a guy that's got a new starting quarterback and virtually nobody back at wideout and 4 new starters on the offensive line, he seemed pretty at ease with his squad. And it feels like he likes what he has on his hand was really my biggest takeaway from Monday.
Yep. Austin, you had this when you sit down and talk to him. I mean, this team kind of personality-wise seems to fit his personality a little bit. And I'm not saying previous teams hasn't, but this team sort of, to me, kind of fits his mental makeup a little bit doubted, some underdog. The quarterback's got a journey. He had a journey as a quarterback. I mean, there's some things I think that he finds probably some comfort with in this football team. Fair?
I think that's fair. I think that he coaches with a chip on his shoulder. So, like, this whole team is kind of doubted. No one really understands. They lost so much. They lost James Pierce. They lost Dylan Sampson. They lost Nico. They lost, Dante Thornton and all these players from a year ago. And I think some people just go, I don't know who these players are. So, they can't be that good. We'll go middle of the pack, right? And they could finish there, But I think that Josh Heupel is motivated. I told you that in April, Hubs. I thought that this is when Josh Heupel is at his best, is when he gets to kind of play the underdog role. And to be honest with you, I think Tennessee as a institution is much better as the underdog than they are the favorite in all sports. So I think this team's kind of got a little moxie to it. In talking to a bunch of the kids over the last couple of months, they know what's set out there. They know where they're picked to finish, and they kind of like that kind of laying in the weeds type mantra. So we'll see if they can take all that, take it to the field, and have success this fall. But yes, I do think that that's totally fair.
Yeah, a certain offensive player that I spoke to off to the side today, very aware of what they're saying about Tennessee and very much knows what's going on. So that he's ready to get out there and not shock the world or anything, but just go out there and play Tennessee football. And I think that he speaks for a number of those guys on the team. I will say, Rob, it looked like, Josh Heupel, nothing that Brent and Austin haven't said here over the last week or so, but receivers back. They've been back for a week and some change is what Josh Heupel said. So getting Chris Brazzell back there, Mike Matthews, Braylon Staley. I mean, that position group, already so much questions, right? But they didn't really practice an awful lot up until this last week in fall camp, and I thought that was really, really important heading into the season.
Yeah, I mean, me too. And again, Eric, you said beating a dead horse, and I know, when you have a new quarterback that, especially one that's brand new to your program, that's going to be a lightning rod for all the discussion. Man, I just, and I'm not saying it's going to be good or bad. I don't know, but I think the wide receivers are the most fascinating, most intriguing, element of this whole deal. When you're talking about, I mean, you think Mike Matthews and Braylon Staley are going to be good players, but I mean, they got to be good players. I mean, there's no wiggle room, and it's an absolute stone cold lock that you're going to play some freshmen. I mean, have to without you get three guys that have even seen the field in a college game. So to me, and again, I'm not saying yay or nay that I think it's going to be great or awful, but I think that's going to be a huge barometer. I mean, I don't know what really my expectations are for Aguilar. I think he's going to be serviceable at worst is kind of my baseline. But I mean, are the receivers going to elevate him, or is that going to be, kind of something that drags him down a little bit? Because again, I think I'm not the only one, but I think that's a huge storyline.
Well, and I think it's pretty fascinating when you look at the history of receivers the last 4 years. I mean, I think we all would agree that Cedric Tillman had played, but he had not been a huge factor until Josh Heupel got here, and he burst onto that scene in 21. So you're thinking, all right, Dante Thornton arrives. Dante Thornton's going to have a big season as a transfer. Took him to his second year to make a bigger impact, right? You thought this time a year ago, everybody was ready to see Chris Brazzell. Chris Brazzell had done so many good things at Tulane, and here we go, AP, and then Chris Brazzell that doesn't materialize last year. So I'm with Rob in that I think that group's got a lot of talent, but I don't know what to expect. I don't have any idea what to expect out of them. And maybe that's me being unaware, or maybe that's the fact nobody really knows exactly what to expect out of this group when they go play Saturday afternoon.
Expect the unexpected. So, I mean, when I look at year two, you talk about Dante Thornton and those players that thrived in year two, you have to pin in Mike Matthews and Braylon Staley, even though they didn't play a year ago. They were still in the system, so they were learning. They were kind of soaking it all in. It is a fascinating group, and the numbers are very, very thin. They've got to stay somewhat healthy, and it will be a fascinating to see what happens. If they were to be down a receiver or two during the course of the season, what happens with some of those young guys that they even pushed into more prominent positions, especially when you're talking about, it's much easier in year two versus year one. Well, the Rodarius Jacksons and Travis Smiths of the world don't have that luxury. They have to figure it out in year one because they're going to get thrown in the deep end and then they're going to be told to swim. So this receiver group is one we talked about all season long. It was debated back and forth on the general quarters about, whether they should have taken more. I think it's clear they should have. But you kind of are dealt with what you're dealt with now, and you got to figure it out.
How do you guys think that Heupel's going to call this game early, him and Joey Halsey? Obviously, you don't go out there and play scared. I'm not saying they're going to, and they want to run the football and establish the run. I think that they're going to do that. But do you think there's going to be more of an emphasis on easing Aguilar in, easing these wide receivers in, running the football before they set it loose, or can you just see them going and just letting it rip from play one?
Oh, I think it depends on how Syracuse selects to play them. I can totally see them ripping it from play one, because sometimes ripping it vertically down the field is a safer, easier play. So I don't think they're going to go in with the thought process of we got to protect this, we got to protect that. I think they're going to go in and say, how does Syracuse elect to try to play us? And again, Fran Brown's defended this offense, or been a part of a staff that put together a plan to defend this offense. Now, he was at Georgia, and they had a bunch of talented players, and Syracuse is not Georgia from a defensive standpoint. Does he try to do some of those things? Does he not? I think the wrinkles of game one are always interesting. I think they're fascinating, Eric, for this game one, because of all the newness that's out there. I think it's more unusual. I mean, you hear it every year, right? Boy, they did some stuff defensively, structure-wise, we had not seen on film. Somebody always seemingly puts something in the offseason to try to work this offense over if they can. What does Syracuse come out with? What do they look like? How quickly does Tennessee adapt to that? Do they have to adapt to it? The first quarter of this game is going to be a real filling out deal. And how does Tennessee attack based on what Syracuse does, but more so than, hey, we're going to try to get an easy throw here, we're going to do this here, and we're going to try to settle everybody down as early as we can. I mean, I don't think Syracuse is going to come out and go press man across the board, but what if they do? I mean, they are playing a 17-year-old freshman corner as a starter. So newsflash, they'll be talking about a 17-year-old Saturday in the broadcast, but they're playing a guy who reclassified, who graduated a year early and reclassified to come in and has won the starting cornerback job. So, how much is he ready? I mean, now he's 6'1", 185 pounds, big kid, but that's pretty amazing that someone won a job that quickly after reclassifying. They think a lot of him. So how do they play Tennessee? How does Tennessee attack how they play them?
And what do they have to lose, Eric? I mean, like, this is a non-conference game.
They're picked bottom of the pack.
There you go. And so, like, they can, to me, throw a little something. They can throw kind of some junk stuff at Tennessee to see how Tennessee reacts to it. Maybe force them into a turnover or two early, kind of get the feeling good about themselves. I think that's going to be one of the interesting parts to all of this is like, do they just kind of throw just a total junk defense to kind of really mess with Tennessee, throw them off the loop? Because at the end of the day, if you're Fran Brown, you just want to get this thing to the fourth quarter, close, and at that point, anything's possible.
Yeah, I mean, knowing that Syracuse, and we'll touch on like personnel here in a moment. I mean, they've got so many questions on the offensive end for sure. It's very much like Tennessee does entering the season, especially from a national perspective. But what Syracuse doesn't have is a really strong defense, and Tennessee's returning a lot of players that played on a really, really sound defense a season ago. Syracuse was not good defensively last year, and there's a lot of personnel changes there for sure. But I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, it's Syracuse. They're a double-digit underdog, 2-touchdown underdog over at BetMGM, and I think they're going to be aggressive. I think that they're going to try to dial some things up. I think that they're going to try to put the pressure on Tennessee and obviously win the turnover battle, because I think if they're going to win this game, they've got to win the turnover battle and put Tennessee in some positions to where they're susceptible to turn the football over. So how aggressive will they be defensively? How will Tennessee's new-look offensive line kind of handle that? A true freshman at right tackle, a guy starting at center that hasn't, he's practiced there. He hadn't really played center at the college realms, specifically at a level, like here in Tennessee. I know this isn't an SEC game, but how does Tennessee handle that? How does your new quarterback handle that? I think that's going to be really intriguing, because if I'm Fran Brown, I'm trying to throw the kitchen sink at Tennessee. And, it's week one, so you want to evolve and get better. But, I mean, they're repping their entire playbook and installs all fall camp. So it's fresh on the mind as well. I expect Syracuse's defense to be very, very aggressive, and then just kind of see how Tennessee plays off that.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I mean, again, you're just looking at Syracuse, and you're not thinking, if you're a Syracuse fan, you're not looking too far down the road. But that's a tough schedule they play when you look at what they've drawn in the ACC. They've got SMU, they've got Notre Dame, they've got Clemson. That's not the easiest walk in the park schedule for them. They got to find out who they are pretty quickly and what they are. Rob, when you look at them, and I know you did the preseason scouting report on them back in July. They're very kind of unorthodox last year. I don't know that they went into the season saying, hey, we're going to throw for nearly 5,000 yards. But I think that they just said that's our best chance to win is to outscore some people. Do they still feel like they have to do that because of where they are on defense? Do they feel like they've made some strides on defense? Do they feel like they can run the ball and maybe protect their defense? Do they play a different style of offense compared to – they threw it 65 times against Pitt last year. It was slinging around the yard all the time. Do they stay in that mode, or do they, in year two, do they kind of get more to what Fran Brown wants to do? Because I'm not sure he went into that job saying we're going to be basically a run and shoot team and throw it all the time.
I think it's going to be personnel based, and I would be stunned, Hubbard, if they can outscore people like they did last year. Like you said, they had to do it by necessity, but they also had a guy that broke Deshaun Watson's ACC single season passing.
I think he dictated what they were going to do.
I just don't think that's an option now. And it's, they had to play. I didn't watch a ton of Syracuse football, but they were fun to watch because they were always in these, 35 to 31, games, and they had to do that. I don't think that's going to be an option this year. I think Tennessee's got to find some things out. Offensively, who they are, what they can do. I think Tennessee's defense will absolutely just throttle them. I don't think Syracuse will sniff 20 points. 3, 4, 5 sacks. I think it will be ugly.
Yeah. And to answer your question, Brent, maybe eventually it turns into that because we'll see what this defense is. But I don't know if anybody can predict that right now because Syracuse, like Tennessee, has a transfer quarterback that was not here in spring who's starting in Steve Angeli. You've got 2 running backs who have no experience hardly. You've got 4, maybe 5 starters on the offensive line coming from the transfer portal. And your leading receiver in an offense that was so high profile a season ago and so, heavily influenced in stats and passing yards and all that. Your leading receiver that's returning was your 5th option a season ago. And you're hoping you hit the lottery, Jonte Cook, an SEC transfer. You're hoping that a sophomore in Justice Ross Simmons can step up. He had 9 receptions a season ago, but like Tennessee, so many questions, so many unknowns at wide receiver to where I'm intrigued to see kind of how they call this offensively. It's all new. You just don't really know what you have. And so, maybe eventually when they kind of hit their stride, they can be outscoring some people. But, losing your leading rusher who rushed for over 1,000 yards, your leading receiver in the spring window that had a phenomenal year, a tight end that's in the NFL, and, of course, an ACC record-breaking quarterback. Whew, that is a lot to try to overcome, especially in 1 week, week 1 here to begin the season.
Yeah, and Tennessee's replacing a starting quarterback, 4 starting offensive linemen, the conference player of the year on offense.
Yep.
And, a couple of receivers, that are, one's off in the NFL right now. Looks like Dante Thornton's going to make that team with everything he's done in the preseason. That's what makes week 1 games intriguing. And I think that's when you look at, around this conference and some games that you don't know what you're going to have. What's Tennessee's adjustments, Austin, to offensively? How do they adjust? Not just to Joey Aguilar's game, but what do they come out of last year in their self-scout and say, we've got to do more of this. We've got to be better at this. Is it more pistol? Is there motion stuff? What's the tweaks to Tennessee's offense coming out of last year and maybe even the year before? You got Seth Luttrell, who's a new set of eyes and a new voice in there, who obviously carries weight in that room because of his relationship to Josh Heupel and the fact that he's been a head coach and he's been an offensive coordinator. What's Tennessee's tweaks and adjustments? We sit here and talk about the unknowns of what Syracuse does. Can Tennessee shock Syracuse's defense with some different stuff that they do?
Yeah, I can promise you Josh Heupel is tired of hearing people ask, or preface questions. Well, you've not been the same in the last couple of years. You had to slow it down more. Your offense looks different. He's tired of that. And so what adjustments have they made to kind of get back to tempo? Like how can, especially when teams throw a certain look at them. A lot of the decision to kind of change how they've looked the last couple of years in parts quarterbacks or what defenses are letting them have and not letting them have. But what kind of, how do they move the chess pieces around the chessboard? here to give them the best chance to get back to looking like they did. I'm not saying it's going to be perfectly like it was in 22, but look more like that, have more wrinkles like that. You're right. Luttrell is interesting because he does offer a new set of eyes whose, offenses have been really good at different stops. Now, obviously, it was not very good a year ago at Oklahoma, but he had, some different stuff going on out there. How much can he help a guy like Joey on game day, in the box, with stuff he sees that maybe, Joey doesn't because Joey's got so much other stuff going on when he's calling plays. I think all that stuff can really benefit the offense going forward. The question is, what does it look like? How do they adjust? And, we're not going to know until they get out there and play some games.
Yeah, like scheme is not going to change. This offense is not going to change. The tweaks. Could we see a couple on Saturday? Are you waiting until Georgia? Do more? I mean, remember the whole Princeton Fant role didn't become a thing until the Alabama game back in 2022. So I think you're going to continue to evolve as the season goes along. But yeah, I mean, sign me up like everybody else. I want to see how this offense can help itself, how this offense can evolve a little bit and have some of those tweaks, some underneath passing potentially. A lot of people know about the pistol. I'm excited to see what they run and how they can help themselves by adding some tweaks into this offense, but knowing that you might not see all those tweaks, if any, on Saturday.
I want to see if there's more here for the tight ends in this offense. I'm wondering, if by necessity there is more, just because, you're not sure what you have at receiver. Kitselman's your most proven guy in the passing game as far as not a wideout, and then Ethan Davis. I'm pumped that I've been on that train forever. What has he got? What can he turn into? And is there more stuff in this offense for the tight ends that we haven't seen?
Is that stuff more vertical? Is it more big play? Is there more potential splash type play with the tight end as opposed to some of the possession stuff? I think Kitselman's probably going to play a little more possession type deal. But when you talk about Ethan Davis and you talk about Brame, can you do some stuff matchup wise with them that they stretch the field at that position that we've not seen Tennessee really do? They've thrown it to the tight end a bunch, but it's not been just a ton of vertical stuff. Do they get more vertical with the tight end in the passing game? That's the fun part of week one. But when you don't know exactly what you have coming back, and I think we're all curious to see what it is, and we're all, I won't say tired of talking about it, but you've kind of circled around all those things for months that it's time to go find out exactly what it is. And we know that this is a jumping off point in week one. It's not the final product. Eric, as you mentioned, we saw some Princeton Fant against Florida. We saw him more against Alabama. Jalen Hyatt kind of continued to morph into his role as the injury to Cedric Tillman took place. It was Hyatt that really started to take off after that. Remember that Pitt game in 22? It was a game of backyard catch between Hendon Hooker and Cedric Tillman. It's like nobody else was on the field. It's like they're throwing it to Tillman. Hey, somebody cover Tillman. They're going to throw it to Tillman. He was targeted almost 20 times in that game. And that offense really evolved as they grew and they dealt with the injury to Tillman and kind of morphed themselves into something that they weren't at the start of the year, particularly with the Hyatt's role in the slot position.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to football season. On3 is thrilled to be teaming up with great people at BetMGM this year. When you join BetMGM, you get access to a variety of parlay selection features like same-game parlays or live betting options and so much more. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use the promo code ON3 and you'll get up to $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here is how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code ON3. Deposit at least $10, place your first wager on any game. You will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure to use the bonus code ON3 when you sign up. Make this college football season one for the history books. Make it legendary. See BetMGM.com for terms 21 plus older. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER, available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP-AZ, 1-800-327-5050. MA, 1-800-BETS-OFF, IA, 1-800-981-0023-PR. First bet offer for new customers only, subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards are non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 7 days. In partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel, don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use the bonus code ON3 and get your $1,500 first bet offer today. How fast do you guys think Tennessee's going to go? They obviously slowed down the tempo last year at times, and again, based on the season and the matchup, maybe they slow it down. But as I like to point out, this is low-hanging fruit, but as I like to point out, every single time Tennessee plays a team from another conference or, one of these, non-conference games in November or whatever, like the ETSUs of the world, UTEPs, but the tempo, I feel like, is just going to smack them in the face. And, yeah, Fran Brown's familiar with it, but, again, it's something you just can't simulate in practice. And I think that's something Tennessee can really use to its advantage, especially early on in this football game before, the defenders for Syracuse have a chance to kind of settle down.
There's no way to know is the simple answer to your question here. I mean, we're just not out there enough. You can hear that they're running pistol. You can hear that they're going more tempo, but until we see it with our own eyes, it's kind of hard to know how much. I don't want to sit up here and say, "Oh yeah, they're just going to go tempo right out of the gate." I mean, we know the principles and properties of what Josh Heupel wants to do, but we also know he's morphed some as a head coach the last couple of years because he's had a defense that's allowed him to do so. So I think it depends. I think it's to be determined, and we'll see.
Expectations for Joey Aguilar game 1. Let's talk about the quarterback.
4 touchdowns and a rushing score.
Rob said that, overall expects Joey Aguilar to be serviceable at worst, and I know he was talking about big picture-wise for the entire season. But, Rob, game 1, expectations for Tennessee's new quarterback, what are they?
Man, I can't imagine that he's not going to be – I wouldn't say nervous, but I mean jacked up. Just like – this is going to be the biggest stage that, at least where he's been, the home team that he's played on. I'll be surprised if he's not battling, just the – again, not nervous, but just if he's not just so hype early. My biggest thing with him is going to be ball security. I want to see if he takes care of it. I mean, and by that I mean does he hold off on forcing it in there? And man, you hear Halsley and Heupel talk, man. I think it's a fine line for a quarterback because they want these guys to be aggressive. I mean, they lean probably more towards that angle than most coaches. So that to me is going to be my biggest thing that I'm worried about. Not does he err on the side of caution, because I don't think that's in his nature at all. And just how careful with it? How careful is he with it? How aggressive is he? That's my baseline for what I want to see.
Listen, Hubbard, if they come out and they throw a deep ball and he completes it early, the Tennessee side is going to lose their minds.
It's and again, sometimes those are the easiest throws. I don't think they'll get that matchup, but I go back to the 2000 season. Tennessee had played and lost that overtime game at LSU, and AJ Suggs had thrown it 60-something times in that game, and it was dink and dunk, dink and dunk, dink and dunk, and then they make a quarterback switch a couple weeks later, and it's Casey Clausen, and he comes out on play 1. He may have even checked to it because that's sort of his mentality, but I mean, they went up top on play 1, and that place in Inland Stadium went like, yeah, okay, now this is what we're supposed to do here. So you're exactly right. You hit one of those early. This fan base will absolutely lose their mind, because you go back and watch last year, and I think there were more of those plays available to Tennessee than we recall. I mean, you and it's kind of human nature. You recall the game-changing plays or the significant plays of note. You don't dwell and kind of put and compartmentalize the negatives or the plays that were near misses. They had a bunch of misses vertically. I mean, there were more guys open vertically than I want to give them credit for last year. They weren't very good throwing the deep ball. They just weren't very good vertically. They didn't catch enough of them. They dropped too many. They overthrew them. They just did not execute that play very well. And I'm not saying they should have scored 20 more touchdowns, Eric, but there were 6 to 10 of those that you could have easily said in some key games that, hey, you hit half of those, you feel a lot better about kind of the direction of where that passing game was going last year versus what it turned out to be.
Yeah, again, that 2-game stretch, Florida and Alabama, I mean, Nico, receivers, I mean, just the whole operation, it was so off for that 2-week span specifically because there was so much left on the table, so much. And obviously you're trying not trying to leave anything on the table. You're going to leave some on the table. I mean, that's just, nobody's ever perfect, but you want to be able to, hit on some more of those this year. And I think Joey, historically, if you go look at his numbers, Pro Football Focus, he's thrown a deep ball pretty well. Is that something Tennessee wants to tap into here? Is that something Tennessee wants to do? Putting him on the run, rolling out. I don't know. We'll have to see. Again, all these questions, that's what makes week one really, really exciting. Volquest put out a predicted two deep on Monday. And again, Tennessee didn't release its two deep that was going to have 27 oars on it Monday. I guess that'll be available on game day. Brent Austin, when putting that together, anything comes as a surprise. Maybe not like, oh, this guy's going to be a starter, or oh, this guy's going to be the 2D, but just overall, like, man, this guy's come a long way. Like, he's going to really help this team this year. And yes, I know we've talked about Jesse Perry before, but like some of those other ones, like this guy, I didn't necessarily see it, but he's going to play a big role for Tennessee.
Nothing for me that just was like surprising, but at the same time, I think for just the common fan, they're trying to, figure out, who some of these players are because they didn't play a big role last year, or they're total newcomers this year. And so when you got fans that, aren't, just ingrained at looking at the depth chart, at looking at each and every player on the team, it's a learning process. So you're going to learn about this team a lot, over the next few weeks as you figure out who is who and kind of what their role is on this 2025 football team.
I thought the first team was pretty easy to put together. I thought it was pretty easily set once the quarterback race was over. I didn't – just kind of guessing at it and figuring it wasn't really hard. I mean, I think all of us agree that given what he's gone through, it's just nearly impossible to see Boo Carter be a starter in game one. Not that he's not going to play or be available, but they just weren't going to go that route. I don't think you start a guy that you have to answer a question about his status every time you step in front of a microphone. Outside of that, I didn't think I think it was pretty obvious where they were with their first team. The second team, I think the second team is always a crapshoot, and it's always a lot of oars, and those are legitimate oars when you get to the second team. From the standpoint of there's not a clear defined two there, right? So like, David Sanders might slide to left tackle if need be, right? Wendell Moy could go to right guard if need be. In the secondary, McMurray could be a corner and Boo comes in, or there's just a lot of ways you can maneuver things around that it's not a clearly defined, this is this guy's backup type deal. But overall, no, nothing surprises me. I mean, I think when you look at surprises of camp, Weathersby being where he's at right now as a strong side defensive end is a credit to him being healthy and kind of where his commitment level is. I think Jordan Ross putting himself and definitely in the rotation at the Leo is a guy who's taken a real step from a maturity standpoint. Not that he was a bad egg, okay? And I think we get lost in that word maturity sometimes, that you say the guy was immature, then all of a sudden you think he's some kind of troublemaker. He's causing us. It wasn't that.
He was young and not playing.
Yeah, he was a 5-star who everything had gone well for him pretty much in high school. He comes in, he looks up, he's fourth on the depth chart. So he wasn't very mature about how he went about his business. It is a very normal thing to happen for a young, high-profile, highly talented player. But I think he's found his stride better to the point that he's going to be into that conversation. I am curious to see what they do with Jordan Burns at linebacker. Aren't you, Austin? Like,
yes.
How much does he play? Athletically, I think he fits all the bills, but mentally, is he far enough along? To me, he's clearly above those two freshmen or those three freshman linebackers right now. How much does he play? Is that a 3-man rotation at linebacker on a heavy rotation, or do they really go with 4 in a heavy rotation at linebacker?
Well, in a perfect world, the way if they blitz the linebackers more like they did when Aaron Beasley was here, I think that Arion Carter is option 1. Option 2 from that thing is Jordan Burns for me. I think that's kind of where the staff sees it. I think that they would use him in that role to bring pressure because, as you said, Brent, athletically, he brings a lot to the table, and there's a lot of explosiveness there, and the kid can move. So, yeah, I am intrigued to kind of see how they play him, how much they play him, how much do they trust him, and, go from there.
Yeah, and
Fourth safety, you have Sidney Walton here, true freshman.
That's a surprise. I mean, that's a surprise right now for me. Now, I don't know that they're going to rotate in 4 safeties out of the gate, Austin. I mean, that might be a 3-man rotation at safety. and try to maybe get Walton some work more in week 2 to try to build some depth in, than it is him being in the rotation in Mercedes-Benz week 1 against an offense that a year ago threw it all over the lot on teams. So I'm not sure they go 4 deep in the rotation at safety in week 1.
I agree with that. I mean, I think week 1, you go play who you trust. Week 2, they'll give those kids a chance to earn more trust by proving you can play against a lesser opponent and have no busts. Don't bust. That's where those young kids are going to be judged. Because athletically, they'll be fine. It's more so the mental bust, being where you're supposed to be. You could technically make a play and get graded poorly because you made a play because you were in the wrong spot.
Right.
You weren't supposed to be there. It just happened to be the ball was there and it worked out. So to me, that's where those young kids will earn more and more playing time. It's when they actually get an opportunity versus the UAB and ETSU or whoever, not having mental busts and proving that where to be each and every play.
All right, Rob Lewis, here's you've been dealing too long waiting for a game 1 to start, but here's an interesting deal. This officiating crew in this game is non-SEC, non-ACC. How many offensive pass interference penalties are you seeing Tennessee get called on a wide receiver screen where they block downfield because they're playing? This game is managed by an officiating crew that doesn't deal with it week in and week out with Josh Heupel's team in the SEC. And how much does that crew affect tempo in week 1? Let's just throw it out there, Rob.
Man, that's an inside. That's a Hubbard deep dive nugget right there. That if there ever was one, non-SEC, non-ACC. The one good thing is that Josh Heupel will handle it in a calm and magnanimous manner. He'll be patient about it. It's like, look, guys, this is how we play. But that will be a big one. And the other one, the other over under. How many times are you going to hear SEC speed in this one? That's going to be. For me, I think you're going to hear that one a bunch.
A lot of SEC speed. The maddest Josh Heupel's ever been on the sideline was in the Orange Bowl with a non-SEC, non-ACC crew not spotting the ball quick enough. I mean, that's the only time he's gotten an unsportsmanlike penalty from the sideline. And I don't know what he said, but whatever he said at the 20-yard line to that official going into the end zone, that guy threw the flag about as high in the air as you'll see an official throw a flag, because whatever he said it was an immediate reaction of throwing that flag. It was not like, Coach, I've heard this for 4 plays. It was like, you can't say that. And
you can say a lot of things. That's not one of them.
Yeah, whatever it was, he could not say what he said. That's for sure, because it dropped the flag in a hurry.
His frustrations were justified, though. I mean, goodness gracious.
Oh, they couldn't mark the ball.
Yeah.
It was so slow.
How big of a deal? One of the last talking points here, and Josh Heupel actually mentioned this in the Monday press conference, Rob. How big of a deal is it that this is going to be the first game on a big stage in front of a huge crowd, nationally televised for some of these freshmen, some of these transfers? This is going to be a big deal. It might seem minute, but you got to remember these are kids and humans like everybody else. How big of a deal is it to not go out there and be like, oh my gosh, look at all this stuff, getting caught in the moment?
Well, man, I think it's a huge deal, but also it would be a much bigger deal if they were playing somebody besides Syracuse. I mean, I think this is a perfect opener for Tennessee. You go on a big stage, in a venue like this against an opponent. It's a name opponent from a power conference, but really, they're a paper tiger compared with what they were last year. I think it's a great chance for Tennessee's young kids to get their, feet wet in an environment like this, but against an opponent that frankly is, I'll be surprised if it's as close as the spread.
And that's why the ETSU game in week 2 is huge before Georgia in week 3, right? Get running through the tee, the Neyland Stadium experience, kind of know what to expect. So you're not just sitting there in amazement, in front of your biggest game so far when Georgia comes to town in week 3.
Well, coaches better enjoy that, because I think we're going to see with the new 9-game conference schedule moving forward, I think you're going to see some earlier in the season conference games as they try to fit 9 games into some teams that already have agreements with schools out there and things like that. I don't know that anybody's going to play a conference game in week 1, but you never know what that might look like. So I don't think you're going to have this slow ramp up into league play year in and year out like fans are used to seeing. I just don't think you're going to do that. I think some people are going to dive in to early conference games now that we're moving towards the 9-game conference schedule starting next year. So you better take advantage of it with your young players this year, because there are going to be some young guys into some hostile environments early, not just for Tennessee, but for some other teams around the conference next year.
On that note, other conferences do it. Why don't you think the SEC could do week 1 games?
Well, I mean, I think they can. I think there's a possibility. In fact, I think if you go back and look at Tennessee's future schedule, I'm not sure if there's a week 1 game scheduled right now. I think their first non-conference opponent may be week 2. I'm not sure exactly when week 1 is going to be in college football next year. So, I mean, you could certainly do that. But I think the SEC is, I mean, you're also like looking basketball. The ACC's playing conference games, Rob, December the 10th, December the 15th. The SEC is still kind of fighting that. Like
Big Ten's doing the same thing now. I mean, the SEC is becoming the exception.
Yeah, they're the exception to the rule. So, we'll see. But to squeeze those games in the window with your open dates and everything else, I don't know that you're going to have the 2 payday games leading up to your first conference game. It may get back to a little bit of the old school action where you got a big game in week 1 or a big conference game in week 2. I mean, you look at this week's SEC slate, there's some intriguing games. And obviously you got Texas, Ohio State, which is a mammoth game. I mean, Alabama's playing at Florida State. That's intriguing. LSU and Clemson. I mean, those are exceptions to the rules. You got a lot of other payday games. And maybe we don't see as many of those moving forward. There's a couple of those quote payday games that I think are going to be pretty fascinating to watch. That Toledo Kentucky game to me is got some knee knocking to it. If you're
talking about 7th year quarterback Zach Calzada, he's got this.
I'm just saying, you got Toledo's pick to win the MAC, I think, or finish second. That's got some potential knee knocking to it. You get in the second half of that game and you're struggling offensively. And then, I mean,
I like that one, Hubbard. I like that. I'm just saying, Kentucky's going to be bad.
I mean, well, you did that preview. I mean, they're
going to be bad.
And then what Auburn, to me, that looks like a complete potential train wreck. I mean, it's either going to be a beautiful mess, Eric, or it's going to be an absolute traffic crash. And I don't think Baylor's very good. They should get that one on the road on Friday night. But what Auburn is doing or not doing is doesn't make a lot of sense to me, Eric.
No, it doesn't. And I mean, Auburn, talent-wise, man, one of the best ones in the conference, right? It's just outside of that, it's just so confusing on what they're trying to accomplish. So, yeah, a team like Baylor, who I agree with you, I don't think is good at all. I think it'd certainly get pretty interesting there. I know we got to run here, but kind of on the way out, I know this is not game week topics, but the 9-game conference schedule, that is news. It's been talked about for 3 years. Hubs, I know you put out a column after the announcement was made, but let's go around the room here. AP, who do you think Tennessee's 3 permanent opponents are going to be? I don't want to speak for everybody here, but I think Vanderbilt and Alabama are going to be protected. So the question is, who's that third?
Yeah, I wish I knew. I think the easy pick is to go somewhere middle of the road, which is like a Florida. But I know Tennessee's going to be angling hard to have Kentucky on there because it's Tennessee's 3 longest: Vanderbilt, Alabama, and Kentucky. I just don't know if the conference will do that for them. So I'm not copping out here. I just don't know kind of what – I know Tennessee's going to push for those 3. The question is will the conference allow it? Who do they pair with Kentucky, though? Like, I mean, you start looking at – it's easy to pair some of those big heavy hitters with people, but then like some of the like lesser programs, it's harder to pair them. So, is Tennessee Kentucky's elite team that they play? Because you can make a case for Kentucky to play a bunch of teams where you're like, none of those are elite teams, and you got Alabama over here playing like ridiculous, and Auburn's playing a ridiculous 3. That's why I wonder what will happen here.
Well, and the conference says, Rob, they're going to do geography, they're going to do rivalries, and they're going to do competitive balance. My question to you, Rob, is who would be Kentucky's natural rivals? Let's take Tennessee's 3 out of the equation. Who would be Kentucky's rivals, and how is Tennessee not one of those 3? Now, I know in my column I wrote Tennessee and South Carolina just to be different there as opposed to Tennessee and Kentucky. But if you're looking at Kentucky year in and year, I mean, is South Carolina one of their rivals? Is Florida a rival? Like, who would you look at Kentucky in football and say, outside of Tennessee, man, they got a real rivalry with that school?
Nobody at all. I mean,
and that's what makes that one interesting.
Exactly.
If they're going to protect rivalries.
Hey, based on how they play Florida, I say Florida.
But at the same time, I mean, if you're one of Tennessee's, if you're Georgia or Alabama and you're competing, at the top of Tennessee, that's to me is too much of a competitive advantage to have Kentucky and Vandy guaranteed every year.
I don't disagree with that.
I mean, that's a gift.
Based on history.
2 wins.
Based on history of those two programs, yeah. There'll be a lot of people screaming foul.
And I don't blame them. I mean, I totally get why Tennessee wants that. But I think that's a competitive. Those are the two trashiest programs ever in this conference.
And you've got, I mean, Eric, you got Auburn sitting there. They're going to get Georgia. That's the oldest game in this league. They're not doing away with that game. And we really think the Iron Bowl is going to go away. So Auburn's like, all right, we got those two. Really?
Auburn needs Georgia, Alabama, and then like Vanderbilt. To make that, because I mean those are two pretty heavy hitters for sure. I mean, it doesn't matter any way you want to spin it. One fan base, one school, one university is going to be crying foul, as you wrote, and there's going to be a lot of angry fans. But I mean, it's almost like an impossible task, which makes it so interesting. I don't know who wrote it a couple years ago. Somebody put out there that Tennessee's third opponent was going to be South Carolina. So that's kind of been like that trendy pick for me, as AP said, kind of middle of the road. Like Shane Beamer's got them playing good football. They're not bad. They're not great, kind of middle of the road. I think that type of team would make a whole lot of sense, but I like everybody else to be pushing for Kentucky.
And like Hubbard was saying about Kentucky, who are their natural rivals? Who do you think, Clemson, obviously, that doesn't matter. I mean, Georgia because of geography, but, South Carolina and program X don't move the needle.
Well, and then you're talking about people being mad, Austin. Coaches aren't going to be happy. One, they don't really want to go to 9 games. They're all going to say publicly, hey, it's great for the league, competitive, we're the best, like Josh Heupel said on Monday. But they're not interested in playing 9 games. They would much prefer to stay at 8 games for the wear and tear of their football team. So they're not going to be happy with their 3 rivals. No, I mean, there's no way to keep everybody happy there. And then on the flip side of that, too, how are they going to figure out who gets 5 and who gets 4 home games to start this thing? I mean, there are going to be some ADs screaming foul that, they should have gotten 5 games in year 1 based on their schedule. And somebody else says, no, we deserve it. Everybody can't get 5 games in year 1. So then you're going to have ADs mad because of loss of revenue there. Nobody's going to come out of this and go, this is the greatest thing ever when it looks at. There's going to be anger on all sides from ADs and coaches about how all this is done.
And also with having to continue to play a Power 4, a high-level Power 4. What's that mean? Does that mean just a team from a Power 4 conference?
Yes.
Is Syracuse high level? Was Virginia high level? Like if I'm Georgia Tech, I'm like, Georgia Tech's going to play Georgia, but like if I'm Georgia, I'm like, heck yeah. Like if I'm South Carolina, I'm like, man, I got to play Clemson every single year. I mean, those games aren't going away, but if Clemson has to play, or if South Carolina has to play Clemson and Georgia has to play Georgia Tech, like where's the median here for teams like Tennessee?
Florida State, Yeah. I mean, it's one of those. I mean, the idea that they even put the phrase high end in there is just you're going to play somebody from those leagues.
Yes,
that's what you're going to play. You're going to play somebody from the Big 10, the Big 12, the ACC. Somebody in that league is going to be on your schedule. Is how that's going to be. There is no. You're not going to call the commissioner up and go, hey, we got Wake Forest on the line. Is that high end enough to meet your standard? No, you're going to sign a deal and play them.
No. Hang on, let me get Bob in here with the chart.
I mean, high end was crazy. So
it was hilarious. That was my favorite part of the whole release. I thought it was so funny.
Hey, last thing out the door, Ohio State, Texas. Anybody got a vibe on that deal? Is everybody taking Texas on that?
I'm taking Texas. Yes,
I would take Texas.
I mean, first start at quarterback. I mean, just keep it simple, stupid.
AP,
I'm gonna take Ohio State. Be different.
That game intrigues me. I'll catch it on replay, but that game has got some intrigue to it because, I mean, it's like everybody's just anointed Texas to be in the title game. Like it's just like they're going to walk through, and they're not going to walk through all the way through this thing. I don't think so. That how they play in this opener is There'll be some overreaction to that one. Although the overreaction right now is they look at their schedule and go, well, they're going to be there at the end.
It's just about the Ohio State quarterback in this one for me. Redshirt freshman, first start of the road.
Yeah. I mean, Ohio State's going to have the best player on the field, but I think Texas, too, brings back a whole lot of production on defense. I don't pretend to know what Ohio State's defense looks like right now. A lot of those guys left since the playoff game.
Surely they lost some of those dudes.
Yeah. And they lost the coordinator, which was, fantastic.
Both their coordinators. Ohio State's got a lot more question marks than Texas does. I think all the pressure's on Texas there.
Couple good games around the slate to begin college football. Of course, we got a little bit of a taste of it. Week 0 this past week. Don't tell Grant Ramey. He's not a fan of that. But a lot of good games here in week 1. Of course, Tennessee and Syracuse from the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Neutral site in Atlanta, Georgia. We'll be there with you every step of the way. Have you covered leading up to kickoff, during the game, and, of course, tons of post-game reaction right here at Volquest.com. It's game week. So much happening right now. Game week content coming up. Matt Ray's going to have a recruiting pod on Wednesday, Rocky Top Roundtable on Wednesday, matchup piece on Thursday, 10 things I think, cheat sheets, so much going on. And it's all right here at VolQuest.com. No better time to join us right now than at VolQuest.com for game week. And $1 for the first week. $1 for the first week. Come check us out and stay for football season. You will not be disappointed. The standard in Tennessee football coverage and Tennessee athletics coverage in general. That is VolQuest.com. For Brent Hubbs, Austin Price, Rob Lewis, I'm Eric Kane. We'll see you again on Thursday for the Mailbag Podcast. This has been the Volquest Tuesday Morning Podcast.